Our movie starts with a representative from Cardiff, an American company that specializes in water supplies, and an unidentified country in Asia and its prime minister making a deal to make Cardiff responsible to build their new water system. And as the Cardiff representative leaves, we hear a gunshot, and the prime minister's guard goes inside to check on the prime minister, and he sees that he's been assassinated by a group of armed rebels. Now let's take you back 17 hours earlier and explain all of this situation. So about 17 hours earlier, a new employee, Jack, brings his wife Annie and their two daughters Lucy and Bees to this unspecified country. And here they meet a British guy named Hammond. And once they arrive at the country, Hammond tells them that he can give them a ride to their hotel. And Jack and Annie accept his help, and Hammond and his local friend bring them to their hotel. And once they get in the hotel, Jack tries to call Cardiff, but the phone in their room doesn't work. And he goes out to the lobby to check if he has any messages there, and the receptionist tells him that there are no messages from Cardiff. And then Jack wanted to chill, so he goes out to this bar. And there he sees Hammond singing karaoke. And Hammond joins him for a drink, and Jack asks him what he's doing here. And Hammond tells him that it's because he loves the ladies here. That's why he's in this country. And next morning, Jack goes to the lobby again and asks if there are new messages from Cardiff. And the receptionist tells him that there are new messages still, and Jack asks if they have any newspapers. And the receptionist tells him that delivery is late today, but if he wants, there's a shop close by that sells newspapers. And he shows Jack the shop on a map, and Jack leaves to get the newspaper. And Jack gets there, but the only English newspaper that they had was 3 days old. And he buys the newspaper, and he gets out of the shop, and he sees a group of police on one side and a group of rebels on the other. And as you could guess, a fight breaks out between them, and Jack starts running back to the hotel, and the rebels were too much for the cops, and they end up killing all of them. And when Jack gets to the hotel, he sees another group of rebels taking the Americans outside of the hotel and executing them. And some of the rebels chase him, but he escapes from them and he gets to the hotel. And the hotel staff is trying to hold off the rebels, and Jack runs into his room and he tells his wife what's happening outside. And he tells her that they need to leave right now and go to the American embassy. And Jack asks where Lucy is, but they couldn't find her in the hotel. And Beezy tells them that Lucy snuck out to go to the pool earlier. And Jack tells Annie to get ready to leave and that he'll go get Lucy and come back. And when he goes out to find his daughter, Lucy, he notices that the rebels have broken into the hotel and are executing people. And seeing this, he rushes to get Lucy, and Annie hears something coming from the opposite side of the room. And when she sees through the peephole, she notices the rebels killing the people in that room, and she gets very frightened. So she takes her daughter to the bathroom and she tells her to shut up after reinforcing the door with a chair. The rebels try to kick in the door, but when they don't hear anything, they just leave. And Jack finally finds Lucy, but the rebels see him, and when he was trying to leave, they chase him up the stairs, and Jack gets saved by Hammond, who beats up all the rebels, and he tells Jack to immediately go to the roof. And Jack goes to his room and he gets Annie and Bees, and they go to the rooftop. And on the roof are all the surviving foreigners, and they're waiting for a rescue team from the American embassy. And they hear the rebels chanting outside, and they ask one of the staff members what they're saying, and he tells them that Americans are taking over our water company, and the rebels are saying that they're gonna get it back. And then they hear a helicopter approaching, and they're very happy and excited to be rescued. And they all gather around to get inside the helicopter, but when the helicopter gets close, Jack notices that it was actually the rebels and not a rescue team. And the rebels inside the helicopter start shooting at them. Jack and his family run away, but they couldn't find any way out. And the rebels have also broken the roof door and they're coming after them. And Jack convinces Annie to jump to the next roof of the next building. Annie hesitates at first, but there was no choice, so she jumps to the next building, and Jack throws Beezy and Lucy to her. Yeah, you heard me. Throws his daughters to her. He then jumps himself and gets inside the next building, and the rebels are also in this building as well, and they start killing everyone. And Jack and his family find a place to hide until they leave. And once the coast is clear, Annie finds a map and they see where the American embassy is. And they decide to go there on their own, and while they get ready, one of the rebels see them and he calls for backup. And Jack immediately jumps on the guy and he beats him up and kills him. And he takes his clothes and his backpack and they leave the building. And they pass through the rebels without being noticed, and they finally reach the American embassy. And when they get there, they see a barricade blocking the entrance, and they don't see anybody at the door. So Jack jumps the barricade to see inside, and he tells Annie and his daughters to wait for him outside. But when he gets inside the compound, he notices a lot of burned and scattered documents outside, and when he gets closer, he sees a dead body inside. And he also notices the rebels coming out of the building. And apparently, the American embassy has been taken over by the rebels, and Jack runs back to find his family. And he meets up with Annie, and they run to hide from the rebels, and they run into this old man and they ask him to hide them, and he lets them hide in his shop. And the rebels start searching the city for any Americans left, and they also know that Jack has escaped, so they start looking for him. And they come into the shop where Jack and his family were hiding, and the old man tries to stop them, but they just beat him up and enter the shop. And they were planning to burn down the entire shop when Annie ran out and she gave herself up. And then the rebels start beating her up, they slap her around, and Jack grabs this gun from the ground and he tries to shoot at them, but the gun didn't really have any ammo, so he also gets caught and he ends up getting beat up too. And then the rebel leader orders his team to hold Annie tight, and he starts tearing off her clothes, and then he pulls down her pants, and Jack is trying to fight off the rebels to save Annie, but they overpower him and they hold him down and they make him watch as the leader tries to grape his wife. But before the leader could do anything, Hammond again comes in with two other guys and he kills all the rebels. And then he takes Jack and his family to a safe house and he gives them some dinner and a place to sleep for the night. And there, Jack and Hammond start a talk, and Hammond tells Jack that he's actually British intelligence. And he also tells him that America and Britain have a vested interest in this country, and that those two countries offered a loan and built infrastructure here, and now the country cannot pay back. And Britain and the US ended up enslaving the country financially, and they did this by the help of the company that Jack works for, Cardiff. And how it works is they would use all their country's labor and resources for free. And until they take enough resources and labor that the country incurred, everybody in the country would basically be a slave on no wages to the US and Britain. And then Hammond goes on to tell Jack and Annie to take their children in the morning and cross the river to Vietnam. And he tells them to ask for asylum once they get there, and that the American embassy will take them in and take care of them. And as they were asleep, Jack hears gunshots, and it's apparently the rebels who found their safe house. They immediately grab their things, and Hammond starts shooting at the rebels to hold them back, and he kills most of them, but he ends up getting shot in the gut. Jack runs back to save Hammond, but he tells him to run to the river and save his family. And since the rest of the rebels were coming for Jack, he leaves Hammond there and he runs away. And then Hammond grabs his gun and he shoots at the driver of the rebels, and he saves Jack for the last time, and then he dies on the street. And Jack and his family reach the river and they see someone with a boat, and Jack gives the man his expensive watch, and the man also wanted his boots, so Jack gave him his boots. And in exchange, the man gave him the small boat that he owned. And before they can get on the boat and leave, the rebels once again catch up to them, and this time, Jack tries to fight them off, but one of them now has Lucy, and he points a gun at her head, and he tells Jack to stop fighting. And then the rebels start acting like rebels, and they give a gun to Lucy, and they tell Jack to make his daughter shoot him, or the rebels will kill Lucy in front of him. And Jack tells Lucy to pull the trigger, but she just ends up shooting the gun on the ground. And Jack begs his daughter to shoot him, but she ends up crying and she says no because she can't shoot her father. And then the rebel points his gun at Lucy, but before he can shoot her, Annie comes from behind and she hits him over the head. And as their leader fell to the ground, Jack frees himself and he takes down the other two rebels, and then he takes Annie and Lucy and his other daughter Bees, and as soon as he gets on the boat, reinforcements arrive, but once Jack and his family reach the Vietnamese border, the military stops the rebels, and they take Jack and his family to the American embassy in Vietnam. And that is how Jack and his family escape. Get it? Because the movie's called No Escape? Yeah, so. Anyways, this is how our movie ends. I hope you guys enjoyed our recap. Remember to leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys on the next recap. Bye.